442 pro player custom tactics and player instructions. That is what I'm going to be showing you today. Top 200 in the world, so obviously pro player. Let's get straight into it. This is balanced custom tactics and instructions. Probably my favourite formation in the game. Definitely favourite balanced formation in the game to start off with. So let's get straight into it. I don't want to waste any of your time, so you can get using this as soon as possible. So defensive style, we're going to be sticking with balanced. I don't feel like using a press is necessary on this formation. It works well on attacking formations, but on a formation like this, I prefer to stick with balance. The width we're going to drop down to 35, which makes it narrower when you're defending and harder for your opponents to break through the middle. It makes it harder to concede pretty much. It's as simple as that. For the depth, we're going to be using 70 depth. We're using the lower width to sort of help out with defending, so we can afford to use a higher depth this time. And 70 and above depth, you get an automatic offside trap, and we do want to be using that automatic offside trap to our advantage with this formation in particular. So we are going to be using 70 depth. If you don't feel comfortable enough using this, definitely you can drop it down below if you want to, but I don't recommend anything too low because you're going to be sitting too deep, and your opponents are going to have all the possession. You want to try and win the ball back as quickly as possible, rather than let your opponents have the ball and you're just sitting back, not letting them get through. It's better to try and win the ball back. So we're using 35 width and 70 depth. For the build-up play, I recommend fast build-up, passing it around quickly, building the play up quickly, pretty much self-explanatory, getting the ball to those midfielders, the left mid, right mid, and up to your strikers as quick as possible. Chance creation, we're going to help out as much as possible with the direct passing. So we're going to be using direct passing, get the ball to those strikers, through balls to those strikers, through balls to those left mids and the right mids as well. It works well alongside fast build-up and direct passing. They work well together. With the player instructions I'm going to show you in a minute as well, they work well together. For the width, we're using 65 to push out the left mid and right mid right up against the touchline, so they're hugging that touchline, making the use of all of the width of the pitch. If you go too wide, then it's sort of going to stretch the formation out and sort of make it, just change the whole shape of the formation. You don't want to ruin the shape, but 65 works well because it keeps the shape, but really make sure those left mids and right mids are hugging the touchline, making it really wide, stretching out the pitch, which is what you want to do, and get crosses into the box. Players in box, we're using 6 to help overload the box. The more players you have pushed forward into the opposition box, the more goals you're going to score because you've got more players around the area. You can pass it around, wait for opportunities, and get goals. Corners on 2 and free kicks on 2 as well. Okay, so now for your player instructions, I recommend both your strikers stay central, staying in the centre areas of the pitch and not drifting that wide in line with the goal. Getting behind, making forward runs behind the opposition defenders. It works well alongside direct passing and fast build-up. And stay forward so your strikers are not dropping back when defending. You can use base defence support if you want to. Personally, I prefer stay forward, so when you win the ball, you know for a fact your strikers are always going to be up there. And if they're too deep, then sometimes you're going to sort of try and get on a counter-attack and there's going to be no one up there, so it's just a bit pointless using that. So stay central, get in behind and stay forward on both strikers. For the 2 centre mids, I recommend cover centre. If these centre mids get drawn out to the wing, if you use cover wing, then you're going to have absolutely no one in the midfield helping out. It's really going to draw your players out of position and mess stuff up for you. So you want cover centre, so they're staying in their position. And for the rest, I just recommend leaving default. You can use get into the box across as well if you want to, just to maximise overload in the box. Personally, I prefer to use balanced crossing runs as well, so they're not always going into the box, otherwise you can be very open to counter-attacks. I just leave centre mids default with cover centre on both of them. For the left mid and right mid, for these, personally, I just leave it completely default. Maybe you could use stay forward if you want to, but for the rest, I just leave default. If you want to use get into the box across to be overloading the box once again, you can do. Personally, I think it's best to leave them default, give them the most freedom possible, and when you're on the ball, then you can do stuff manually with them, and it's easier for them to make runs when they have less instructions on them. For your fullbacks, I recommend leaving default. Sorry, not leaving default. I'm so used to saying leaving default on my wingers now. Sorry, fullbacks. You do not want to leave these default. You want to use overlaps. They're making overlapping runs on the outside, and I recommend using balanced attacks. So the rest default with overlap. If you use stay-back goal attacking, it can work well because you're keeping the back 4, but it can sort of be sometimes too flat, and you really want those fullbacks helping out their left mid and right mid. So if you want to use stay-back goal attacking and keep your fullbacks back, then feel free to do so, but just use mixed attack. But if you want them pushing forward, make sure you have overlap on, so they're overlapping the outside of your left mid and right mid rather than coming inverted on the inside. You really want them on the outside, once again, right up against the touchline as wide as possible, and that's personally what I do. So for your 2 centre-backs, always leave default. And lastly, for your goalkeeper, comes to crosses to your keepers coming off his line more to defend corners and crosses. And sweeper keeper, be more aggressive, challenging for loose balls and free balls into the box. Once your goalkeeper has the ball, you're not going to lose it, are you, until you've sort of given it away or thrown it away or kicked it away, whatever. So once your goalkeeper has the ball in your hands, you can't lose the ball. So pretty much just try and get the ball with your goalkeeper's hands as much as possible. It is that simple. That is why we're using comes to crosses and sweeper keeper to make sure our keeper's going for the ball from corners and through balls. So that's everything for today. That's the 4-4-2 custom tactics and instructions. Sorry if I'm speaking very quickly. I'm trying to get it all out quickly because I want you guys using this formation as quickly as possible. It's a very balanced formation and it works really well. It's a good formation to start off the game with. It's what I recommend, Will. And it's really good to fit a team around. You can see I use the 4-4-2 here. Don't worry, guys. This isn't my main team. This was for an SBC. Don't worry about that anyway for now. But that's the 4-4-2 custom tactics and instructions, top 200 in the world. So thank you for watching. Hopefully I'll see you again soon, and goodbye.